Do you believe in premonitions or foreshadowing? Well, many people do, but other people brush it off as nothing more than a coincidence. While it's unclear whether 23-year-old Angela or Angie Barlow believed in premonitions or not, she did send a text to her best friend of 11 years that was supposed to be funny, but when she went missing and was nowhere to be found for months, this very text left a bad taste in everyone's mouths. 8 months went by before any progress was made in this case. And what's so frustrating is that the police believe they know exactly who's behind Angie's disappearance, but they're struggling to prove it. So, did someone actually get away with whatever happened to Angie 8 years ago? Well, let's find out. Welcome to True Crime Stories. If you're new here, I post new true crime documentaries every single week. So if you're into that kind of thing, be sure to hit subscribe. It's totally free and just keeps you up to date with all of my future cases. But Angela Barlow, better known as Angie, was born on August 21st of 1993 in Denver, Colorado, to parents Stephen and Christina Kramer. She had 3 younger sisters, Wendy, Jessica, and Zarema, and they were all very close. Angie was the protective but fun big sister. Angie from a young age was just unique. She had an energy about her that made her fierce, loyal, and very caring. She was the stubborn sibling as defined by her mother, Christina, because if Angie set her mind to something, she was gonna do it. When Angie was older, she attended high school and got her diploma from the Career Center. And during high school, she was extremely athletic. She loved all kinds of sports, but her favorite was softball. But she also loved bowling. Angie was excitement personified. She was the type of person to explore, get out of her comfort zone, and find new things to experience. When she was older, she moved from Muncie, Indiana to Indianapolis with her best friend, Mona Jackson, and they even got an apartment together. According to Mona, Angie was more like family than a friend, and they would do everything together. And it was clear that Mona and Angie would do anything for each other if they were in a time of need. And we'll see this later on in the case, as Mona will prove that. Angie, after high school, was unsure of what to do with her future. So in the meantime, she started to work as a dancer at Club Rio on West 38th Street in Indianapolis. Even though it was an interesting career choice, Angie actually loved her job. She loved being creative and expressive, and the money was obviously nice, but still, Angie's mom, Christina, didn't like her job. Although she never stopped Angie from doing what she wanted, Christina preferred her daughter did literally anything else. Christina said in an interview, quote, "She liked what she did, but I didn't." I mean, obviously I don't think any parent likes that. Regardless, Angie felt safe, otherwise she wouldn't have been doing it. And in her mind, this was a temporary plan anyway. She was saving up money and was contemplating quitting dancing and pursuing something more lucrative and permanent in the future. As for her job as a dancer, Angie would also do private house parties. She'd done them before and she wasn't new to them. So by all accounts, Angie was an independent, life-loving, and caring woman who loved expressing herself in interesting ways. But no one could anticipate that Angie would just disappear one day without a trace. That is, until that day came in October of 2017. In October of 2017, Angie was going about her day when she received a text from someone. It was a woman who wanted to arrange a private dance to surprise her husband for his birthday for $500. Interesting birthday surprise for a married man, but whatever. Now, if you remember, Angie would occasionally do private parties, so this wasn't completely weird for her. But there was one thing that both Angie and Mona found weird, and it was that the woman never gave her name. Angie didn't think much of it, but Mona had a very unsettling feeling about this, and she pleaded with Angie not to do the gig. Initially, Angie also turned down the offer and went about her life, but the mysterious client kept hitting her up. It came to a point where Angie felt that she had no choice but to say yes. See, Angie was living comfortably, but living in a big city like Indianapolis didn't hurt to have a few extra dollars to spend here and there, and at one point, Angie needed the money to pay her bills. So in the end, Angie said yes to the gig and was preparing for it. Not long after, the client sent Angie the apartment address as well as the door code to get into the front door via text. The party was going to be held at Landmark Apartments and Townhomes in Indianapolis. And again, this location was unknown to Angie. The client also asked Angie to wear black and red lingerie for the gig. Fast forward to October 26th, just 5 days before Halloween, Angie was getting ready for the gig, and she even texted Mona the address and the door code just for safety. See, Angie had a habit of sharing her location whenever she did these private house parties. She would do this with Mona. And in this way, someone close to her always knew where she was. Once Angie was ready, she left the house and sent Mona a text that said, quote, "Doing a house party at this address, just in case I go missing, LOL." Now, at first glance, this message doesn't seem unsettling. Rather, it can be taken as a funny back and forth between friends. But this was sadly the last conversation Angie would have with Mona. A few hours had gone by, and Angie posted a selfie on Snapchat at around 11:45 p.m. From the looks of it, it seemed as though she was in the house bathroom where the party was being held. She was getting dressed and ready to go. The photo was happy looking, and Angie was excited. It didn't seem like Angie was upset, scared, or anything. It looked like she was ready to get this party on the road. But the night came and went, and as the sun rose, no one heard from Angie. Mona stayed up looking for her, but she never made it home. Meanwhile, Angie's mom, Christina, was also starting to get worried about Angie, and she was constantly calling her phone, leaving her voicemails and texts, but everything went unanswered. Keep in mind that Angie had Pablo, her pet Yorkie, and no matter how late a gig ended, she would always come back home to feed Pablo, to let him out for the bathroom break and for a walk. But as soon as Christina arrived at Angie's apartment, it was empty, and Pablo was anxiously awaiting for Angie to come home. Angie wasn't the type of person to just up and leave. This was very concerning and left Angie's friends and family feeling distressed. Mona, after several hours had passed since she heard from Angie, decided to go to the house where Angie was having the party. She went to the address and rang the bell, but no one answered. This left Mona feeling very unsettled, and being the best friend she was, she let instinct take over, and Mona proceeded to climb over the gate, and when she reached the apartment door and opened it, inside was an eerie scene. The apartment was quiet, and everything had been cleaned out. This was very strange, and there was no sign of Angie. Angie's mother, Christina, on the other hand, made her way to the police station and reported 23-year-old Angie Barlow missing. The detectives immediately jumped into action because this wasn't normal at all, especially when Christina stressed that Angie would never leave her pet dog alone without food and water for so long. The police were made aware of the last known location of Angie, and they also made their way towards the apartment where she was working at the party. Investigators immediately checked the CCTV footage in hopes of finding any clues, and luckily they did. See, there was a CCTV camera pointed right outside the apartment, and when the detectives looked at the footage, it showed Angie's car, a blue Pontiac G6, leaving the complex at around 3:30 on the morning of October 27th. But that wasn't the only strange thing. Just behind Angie's car was another dark vehicle, and from the looks of it, it seemed that both vehicles were leaving the complex with one another. Due to the footage being unclear and the windows being tinted, the drivers in both cars couldn't be made out, which only added to the police's frustration. This led the investigators to believe that either Angie was being followed or she was just out with someone else from the party. But why wasn't she answering her phone? Surely if Angie had post-party plans, she would have communicated with her family or Mona at the very least. Still, they were trying hard to find Angie. There were ground searches, missing person posters were put up everywhere, and the Barlow family even voiced their concerns on social media, hoping to get the word out. But sadly, nothing came up. In the meantime, the detectives were trying to find any clues about the second vehicle directly behind Angie's car. Even though they couldn't see the driver, they could make out the license plate number. And when they ran it in the system, a name popped up. The car belonged to a woman by the name of Raven Miller. Subsequently, the police were also able to find out that the mysterious client was also Raven. But who was she? Well, even though the detectives didn't know who she was, Angie did, and they weren't on the best of terms. See, Angie had dated a man in the past by the name of Baron McCullough. He met Angie at a club where she worked as a dancer, and the two had a thing, but the relationship didn't go any further, and the couple broke up. Raven was now the current boyfriend of Barron, and it was clear that she hated Angie. But there was one thing that didn't sit right with Angie's friends. See, Angie and Raven weren't on talking terms, and they weren't even friends. And if Angie had any idea, even the slightest inkling, that she was being approached by either Raven or Barron for the party, she would not have agreed to go in the first place. But the phone number and address of the party were unknown to Angie. In fact, the client, quite possibly Raven, remained anonymous, leading the investigators to believe that Raven was trying to hide her identity from Angie. And this could only mean one thing, and it was terrifying. Angie was lured to the party, and there was possibly another person involved that night. See, according to Mona, if Angie saw either Barron or Raven at the front door of the party, she would have walked away immediately. But she had gone inside and even took photos in the apartment bathroom, in which she looked happy. Nothing implied that she knew she was in the company of anyone she knew or had any issues with. So the detectives boiled the situation down to one disturbing scenario. Barron and Raven used someone else to lure Angie into their apartment, and now she was nowhere to be found. With all of this information surfacing, the police brought Barron and Raven in for questioning. They seemed very calm, and their version of events stated that they did see Angie at the party at their apartment, but she left after her gig with another unknown man. The detectives were left with even more confused after this statement because they knew that they'd hit a dead end. There was no direct evidence to link Raven or Barron to Angie's disappearance, and even though Angie's car was seen being followed by Raven's car, the investigators couldn't make out the drivers in either car. 12 days after Angie disappeared, her car was discovered. It was found abandoned 8 miles from the apartment where she went for the party, and the detectives and Angie's family were hoping to find something, anything, to lead them to Angie. But when they got to where the car was, all hope was lost. Angie's car was found, but it was badly damaged. There were large scratches on the front of the car as if someone had driven it straight through a barbed wire fence. One of the headlights was smashed, and there were sizable dents on the sides of the car. And inside of the car was completely ruined. Now, this was very concerning for Christina to see, because not only was Angie very responsible and safe while driving, but she also kept the inside of her car spotless. The car was taken in for DNA testing, and the contents found inside the car were removed and stored in evidence. And police have not given any indication about whether or not what they found inside the car was anything useful. But after this discovery, the search for Angie was still on. The Barlow family even put out a $5,000 reward for any leads or credible information on Angie, but sadly, no one came forward. The feelings Christina and Angie's sisters were going through were probably the worst in the world. To think that your daughter had gone missing and you don't know where she is, and trying to keep up hope that she might come back safe and sound and alive, it's mentally and emotionally draining. But things only got more bizarre from this point onwards. 4 months into Angie's disappearance, Christina got a call from someone. It was the same number that was used to contact Angie, and when Christina picked up, it was none other than Raven Miller. During the call, Raven said that she and Angie had a conversation the night she went missing. When Christina asked what the conversation was about, Raven's response was downright haunting. She said, quote, "Aw, you want to know what her last words were." What did that mean? Christina was left horrified and confused. Was Angie no longer alive? Why did Raven say this? And why did she say it with so much conviction and sass? If that wasn't enough, Raven and Barron moved away from Indianapolis and settled in Arizona. If anything, that makes them even more suspicious. But even at that point, there was no evidence to hold them accountable for Angie's disappearance, which is so frustrating. 7 long months had passed since Angie's disappearance, and even though her family was still waiting for a miracle to find Angie alive, needless to say, it was getting harder and harder to keep up their hopes, which is just heartbreaking. But something did happen at that 7-month mark. An arrest was made, although it was unrelated to Angie's disappearance, but not completely. See, someone had made an $8,000 transaction. You might be thinking, well, what does any of that have to do with Angie? Well, it doesn't have anything to do directly with Angie, but the account belonged to Angie's grandmother. Someone had information about Angie's grandmother's account and had stolen money from her account. Now, this was concerning for the police because What were the chances of Angie's grandma being robbed just months after Angie's disappearance? Something felt off, and so the police tracked the activity down to a woman named Michelle Brown. What she had to say about the transaction wasn't normal either. According to Michelle, she'd chosen her account number merely by chance, and that she didn't even know Angie's grandma. But you have to admit, it's pretty convenient timing. The detectives obviously didn't buy this story, and 3 people, DeAndre Twilley, Marquez Bell, and Eric Newton, were arrested on suspicion of theft. Though this was all still unrelated to Angie's disappearance, maybe. See, investigators have a strong inkling that one or all of these people may have had a hand in luring Angie to Raven's party. But the detectives had to worry about that later, because almost a month after this event, a call came in. It was an anonymous tipster, and according to that person, they knew where Angie could, quote, possibly be found. The police, as well as Angie's family, were filled with hope and lingering dread once again, and Christina thought that Angie was going to be found alive and well. According to the tip that came in, Angie's location was narrowed down to the backyard of a home that had been vacant for a very long time. And get this, it was almost 10 miles away from where Angie was last seen, located in the 5300 block of East 43rd Street on the northeast side of Indianapolis. The place was soon filled with CSI teams and cadaver dogs, and the police were honestly dreading what they would discover. When the dogs alerted the detectives to an area in the backyard, that was when they got to digging. Once they were a couple feet down, they hit something, and it was horrific. The remains of a woman were found in a shallow grave, and even though the investigators couldn't make out exactly who it was, they had a haunting feeling. The remains were decomposed, but there were still identifying marks on some parts of the body in the form of tattoos. This was when the detectives knew that they had to involve Christina in identifying the body. When Christina got that fateful phone call from police, she was initially hopeful, but when she heard the words coroner's office and identifying a body, her heart sank. This was the call every parent dreads. Regardless, Christina went to the coroner's office the next day, and from the photos of the body and the tattoos, Christina positively identified the body as her now deceased 23-year-old daughter, Angie. To say that this was an earth-shattering moment for Christina would be an understatement. Christina can't get those horrific, engraved pictures out of her mind. She sees them every time she closes her eyes, and she's reminded of the fact that her independent, headstrong, and kind daughter is gone. On July 2nd, 2017, Angie's funeral was held in Muncie, Indiana, and friends and family gathered around to support the grieving Barlow family and say their final goodbyes to Angie. She was laid to rest, and the Barlow family went above and beyond for Angie. Christina wanted Angie's last moments before being laid to rest to be everything she ever wanted, and that's exactly what they did. In Christina's mind, she was never going to see Angie plan for a wedding. She was never going to get Angie's grandkids to spoil. She was never going to celebrate Angie's birthday, special dates, and wins ever again. So this was the moment for the Barlow family to give Angie everything she ever wanted, and even though she wasn't there to see that for herself. It's so heartbreaking to see Angie's family go through this never-ending pain. It's bad enough that they already lost their oldest daughter, but the worst part is the person or people responsible for her tragic end are still out there, and they have not been charged, though police do believe they know exactly who did. Cases like these are just very hard to understand because without evidence, no one can be convicted. But you can't help but have suspicion around Raven and Barron. Their actions after Angie's disappearance and the very chilling conversation between Raven and Christina is just unsettling, and I can't believe this is a coincidence. I mean, Raven literally asked Christina if she wanted to know her daughter's last words. If that's not an admission of guilt, then I don't know what is. It's been 8 years since Angie disappeared, and still no one has been arrested as a suspect or even a person of interest in her case. Raven has since moved on with her life and is now a so-called rapper who goes by the stage name of Bonnie Drip. As of January of 2022, Bonnie Drip released a song titled Dala Fo Dala. But what got the Barlow family and the internet intrigued and infuriated were the lyrics in this song. In the song, Raven says, quote, "Now I'm smoking on this Barlow, If I smoked them, then I did it on purpose. Fellow armchair detectives believe that smoking on Barlow suggests that Raven is mocking Angie's death and making fun of it. We don't know whether the detectives are investigating this or not, but it's unsettling nonetheless. The choice of words, deliberately using Barlow in a song, is just chilling to say the least. Angie's case was highly publicized, and in 2020, Lauren Van Sickle from the Crime Pursuit podcast got sucked into Angie's case after getting to know about it through Facebook. And since then, she's made it her goal to get Angie's case out there and let her story be heard. It just proves that social media is a great way to spread awareness and vocalize cases like Angie's. I just hope that Angie's killer or killers face the consequences for their heinous actions so that the Barlow family can finally move on with their lives. Angie's sisters remember her every single day. Zarima, Angie's youngest sister, still sleeps with a stuffed owl that she named Angie, as it was given to her by her oldest sister. It's her most valuable possession because it's the last thing Angie gave her before she disappeared and tragically lost her life. The case of Angie Barlow is still ongoing, and the Indianapolis PD is actively looking into leads. We can only hope and pray that Angie's case comes to a close because her family desperately needs this closure and deserves it. So if you have any information on this case, you're asked to contact Crime Stoppers at 317-262-TIPS. I think we all know how this case will end. I just hope that it can end sooner rather than later, so that the Barlow family can finally move on and find some level of closure. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of True Crime Stories. I wanted to give a special thank you to a couple channel members, including Tuna African and Jessica and Eden Bradley. If you also want to become a member of the channel, you'll gain access to new videos sometimes days or weeks before they're uploaded to the public, and it's currently the best way you can support the channel and help out. And I really appreciate all of you that have decided to do that. If you want to join, you can click that big join button below the video or find the link down in the description. But as always, if you enjoyed this video, check out this other interesting case I covered, and don't forget to subscribe. It's totally free and just keeps you up to date with all my future videos. But my name is Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.